What is going on, everybody? ZyoniK here, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the new Shadow event, as there are some very cool Pokemon coming to the Great League meta, as well as raiding, if you guys enjoy doing that. Now, if you guys have been wondering where I've been, I've actually been sick. My whole family's been sick this week, which is why you guys haven't seen any videos recently. But I'm feeling a little bit better today. The voice is still kind of gone, but this Shadow event is so cool. We're also going to be talking about the Quagsire Community Day in a separate video, so be on the lookout for that. But I wanted to dive in. I'm sure you guys have already seen the news. Thursday, October 26th to Tuesday, October 31st, we're going to have this Team Rocket Takeover. We will get Regigigas back. We'll also get Shadow Lugia back. But here are some new Shadow Pokemon that we are getting and why everyone's excited. We got Shadow Ghastly here for Shadow Gengar, which obviously very glass cannon Pokemon for raiding. Could have some potential fun and stuff like the Great League and Ultra League. We also have a Shadow Rhyperior with Shadow Rhyhorn, which could have some play in the Master League. It's not seen in Great League and Ultra League. We also got Shadow Barboach, which is going to be Shadow Whiscash. That's one I'm actually excited for, as all these Mud Boys are kind of getting their Shadow variants, which allows them to hit a bit harder. One which I know is like a fan favorite when it comes to raids is going to be Shadow Cranidos. We also got the feared and dreaded Shadow Shieldon, which becomes Shadow Bastiodon, and we'll talk more about why that's actually not a big deal. We'll dive into that. We also got Shadow Drillbur for Shadow Excadrill and Shadow Litwick for Shadow Chandelure. All of these I think are fantastic additions, whether you like PvP or PvE, so let me know which one is your favorite before we dive into the PvP side of it and get into the nitty-gritty and the numbers here. We also have some cool raids, which you guys can look forward to for Ghastly, Grimer. Grimer's going to be a good one you guys want to have. Misdreavus, Litwick, and then the Nidorino, and Golbat. Golbat's a good. All of these are. You just want to get everything, right? Everything's one update away from being meta. These are still really good. Don't forget, you guys, during this event, you guys can TM away frustration. So this is going to be huge if you guys have been saving up some of those Shadow Pokemon. We also got some good eggs as well. As you guys can see here, a lot of great Pokemon that you might need candy for, or just get your Pokedex or get ready. So like Mandibuzz for Great League, right? Fantastic. Mine is from an egg hatch. That's what I use. That's the only way I've been able to get it. So that could be a great opportunity for you. Now, we're going to head over to PvPoke here, where we can do a side-by-side comparison on the team builder section, where we're going to be putting Bastiodon and Shadow Bastiodon right next to each other to really get a good look at what's happening under the hood. And you guys can also go to advanced settings right there. Make sure the team size, or the scorecard length I should say, is 80, and show Shadow Pokemon in results. This is going to give you the maximum look and a side-by-side comparison. So we can go ahead and hit rate team, and then as you can see, a side-by-side right here. The tough thing, this Bastiodon, Shadow Bastiodon sounds deadly, right? It sounds insane, and I'm sure some of you are going to build it no matter what anyways, for the fun and how cool it's going to be. But ultimately, our tanky Pokemon, Registeel, right? Bastiodon, we actually don't want them to be Shadow because they lose some of their bulk, which is the whole reason why. So you can see right here in Superior, you kind of lose that potential matchup just because you're getting hit a bit harder, right? Or that seems to be like the only one. Oh, and Cofagrigus here. So they're somewhat similar, but when it comes to your Shadow Pokemon, or like Steelix right here, you get a bit closer against Steelix in the ones. That's what these symbols are, if you guys didn't know. The unhighlighted circle, right, the dark circle, or the bright white circle. Bright white means a hard win, and a soft win right there, basically. So Bastiodon, even though, so some of you may be excited that like, I just dodged a bullet, I don't have to invest any Stardust or any XL candy. By all means, I'm not going to be building a Shadow one, I don't think. The only way Shadow Bastiodon becomes a big threat is if it gets a different moveset that allows the Shadow to shine, which I don't think it personally will. I think Bastiodon's in a great position. So yeah, Shadow Bastiodon, one that you guys can collect, but maybe not something that you want to replace, because normal Bastiodon I think is just going to be just fine. Next one is going to be Whiscash. And this one's actually really interesting. So that's going to be the Barboach from the event, right? What I'm going to do here is I got a different spread. I got Mudshot with normal and shadow, and then I got Water Gun with normal and shadow. And this is very interesting because the Water Gun shadow picks up some matchups, which I think is pretty cool. So as you're going to see, the first two here, as you guys see in this column, is Mudshot, and the next two are Water Gun. And what you guys are going to see, this, I'll pull this up, but it actually doesn't beat it. I'm not sure why it shows that versus the Medicham and the ones, but it shows that that's the X there, which I was kind of confused by. But the rest of them, I've checked through these, the rest of them do. So the Shadow Whiscash with Water Gun picks up Sableye, which is really interesting, Vigoroth, Alolan Ninetales, Umbreon, and, well, it loses against a couple other things that you may want to cover, which is going to be something like a Toxicroak. It doesn't do as well there. But those are actually some pretty big Pokemon. You still beat, oh, you also pick up Swampert as well. So, what was it? Swampert, Sableye, Alolan, Ninetales, and Umbreon. Those four are actually pretty meta and pretty good, and you still beat what you're supposed to. You still beat Galarian Stunfisk, you still beat Alolan Sandslash, you still beat Bastiodon, but you also lose Lantern. So these are the kind of gives and takes of what moveset you might want to run. I think that's going to be team dependent based on what you build around your Whiscash. Do you need more coverage to an Alolan Ninetales and a Sableye and a Swampert, or do you need better coverage or you know, against Lantern, for example? So those are just some give and takes, but Whiscash I think is going to be a very interesting one to have Shadow, because as you can see here, the Mudshot one has a couple different matchups where you're picking up stuff like Swampert, you're picking up stuff like Vigoroth, you're picking up Defense Form Deoxys, Diggersby, and Azumarill. That's Mudshot. I know we talked about the Water Gun, but this is the Mudshot one. So Whiscash, I think out the gate is actually going to be pretty good as Shadow, which is actually really exciting to see, because Whiscash has always been kind of like the cheap option, right? If you are somewhat new, there's nothing against that, but you know, typically instead you would run something like a Shadow Swampert, but a lot of people, or a normal Swampert, a lot of people don't have that Pokemon or that Community Day move, and Whiscash seems to be much more accessible and cost effective, and now the Shadow one is actually pretty good. So picking up a lot of cool matchups, like you pick up the Noctowl, and that's just due to the damage that you can output, which is why Shadow Pokemon, that's why you see stuff like Shadow Victory Bell, Shadow Swampert. Those Pokemon do well, and Shadow Charizard, because they put out more damage, which is beneficial. When it comes to tanks, like we've shown with Bastiodon, you just want it to be normal. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at Haunter and Gengar now. Now, these have been spicy Pokemon for a while. They used to be meta back in the day, but this is the Great League right here. And I think the Shadow Gengar and Shadow Haunter are just strictly better in terms of match pickups. So they cover what they're supposed to, but they just pick up a few extra things like Dugongs or Registeel here, for example. They're pretty far from meta, if I will be completely honest. If you're going to have a ghost on your team, you really want to go for something like Skeledirge or Sableye, Alolan Marowak, Frostlass, Cofagrigus. Those are some of the, you know, the go-to shadows. Haunter and Gengar are still extremely spicy. Gengar could have some potential play in the Ultra League, but again, there's a lot of Dark-type Pokemon in that meta and Normal-type Pokemon as well, so it's got to be careful. Another one we got here is going to be Excadrill, and I'm actually taking a look at this in the Ultra League, and it's sad, but also it's interesting about Excadrill is it doesn't get a lot more matchups. It has like trade-offs. So instead of beating a Mandibuzz as Shadow, you beat a Pidgeot as normal. And that just comes to the damage output that you can do. But unfortunately for Excadrill, adding the Shadow to it doesn't make its Drill Run or Rock Slide then one-shot some Pokemon where before it didn't. So that's just something to note. As you can see, a big pickup right here actually is going to be Galarian Stunfisk and Alolan Sandslash, so there could be some play there, and Snorlax. But you're still going to lose, and you're going to lose harder to Pokemon who have access to Counter or Double Kick. So, Counter right here for Poliwrath. As we can see, you lose harder against it, which might play into your favor if you think about energy, right? They do less fast moves to take you down, which means they get less energy on the back end, because ideally you're not going to have the Excadrill switch locked into a Poliwrath, right? You're going to bait it out in some way and have Excadrill sweep. So this could actually be a beneficial play for you, because of how energy works, whereas soft losing, they get more fast move damage with counter and have more energy against whatever Pokemon you have coming back in, if you guys kind of are catching on what I'm talking about there. Same with Scrafty, right? Counter damage right there. So overall, and Escavalier, sorry. So overall, I think Shadow Excadrill could be interesting. I think it's going to have some play, and I think you're going to see it, especially in a meta filled with Steel-type Pokemon, like Steelix, for example, in the Ultra League. Shadow Excadrill is just going to hit like a truck, and if it's in a position to have a lot of energy, it can put out a lot of neutral damage against the meta. So don't let these X's and O's fool you. If this thing has energy, it's going to hurt, right? All right, so double check the moveset, as I personally don't play Master League. I've talked about it before, but that's just not a meta that I want to play in. But I know some of you guys are curious about it, how does the Shadow Rhyperior stack up against normal Rhyperior? So what we're going to see here is there's some give and takes where you beat Giratina Altered with normal Rhyperior, but you could pick up, where did it go? You could pick up Mewtwo with Shadow Rhyperior, or Ursaluna with normal and Gyarados with normal, whereas you hard lose that one just based on how much damage you're going to be taking instead of putting out, right? So there's some give and takes, so that's definitely going to be team dependent. Do you need a bit more coverage to Mewtwo instead of Giratina Altered? That's going to be up to you, but I know Rhyperior is one of those Pokemon where people like to use it for raids. Same with Excadrill and Gengar, so all of them, regardless, for this event, you guys should probably look to get and maybe see if you can get a good IV for that, which would be a lot of fun. And overall, I think this event is actually pretty good. It's probably one of the best Shadow events that we've seen of Pokemon released in for both PvP and PvE, which is exciting because I know sometimes events, they're catered to one and not the other. So it's either this is clearly a PvP Pokemon, or this is clearly a PvE Pokemon. It's great to see them kind of balance it, because what's got me excited, right, is the Shadow Whiscash. I think that's really cool for PvP. And what's got people who love PvE excited is probably like Shadow Cranidos. That's probably a huge one. You guys are probably really excited about that. And Shadow Gengar. So overall, really good event, Pokemon you guys want to get. And again, wrapping it all up, I think Whiscash is the winner here. It's going to be the best performing in terms of jumping from normal to Shadow, and there is some spice to be had with Water Gun Whiscash as well, which is really unique. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and like always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.